We want to determine if the given graphs represent functions. To do this, we can use something called the vertical line test. But let's start with a quick review of the definition of a function. A function is a relation in which every input or value in the domain is paired with exactly one output or value in the range. A simpler way to state this definition might be to say that every x value must have exactly one y value in order for the relation to be a function. And to test this graphically, we can use what's called a vertical line test. If a vertical line intersects a graph in more than one point, the graph fails the vertical line test and is not a function. So for example, looking at this first graph, notice if we sketch several vertical lines, none of them would intersect the graph in more than one point. Therefore, this graph is a function. Which means every input or every x value is paired with exactly one output or one y value. If we look at this graph below, notice how vertical lines do intersect this graph in more than one point. Therefore, this graph fails the vertical line test and is not a function. And again, the reason for this is that, for example, if we take a look at the x value of 2, there are two corresponding y values. We have a y value of positive 4 here, and we have a y value of negative 4 here. Therefore, every x value does not have exactly one y value, and therefore it's not a function. To test this graph here, again, we can sketch several vertical lines and see if any of them intersect the graph in more than one point. Never at any time do any of these vertical lines intersect the graph in more than one point, so this graph does represent a function. The last graph here, the circle, does not represent a function because, as we can see, these vertical lines intersect the graph in more than one point, so it fails the vertical line test and is not a function. Relating this to the definition of a function, for example, if we take a look at the x value of 0, it has an output of positive 3 here and an output of negative 3 here. So the x value of 0 does not have exactly one output or one y value, therefore it does not satisfy the definition of a function. We'll take a look at some more examples in the next video.